Good morning and welcome to our Michigan virtual webinar on collaborative partnerships. We still have some attendees joining, so we're just going to wait just a few seconds here and get everybody on the call. We're very excited about the large number of participants we have registered this morning and excited for our panelists to share their stories with you on our collaborative partnerships. So we'll wait just a couple of seconds more and make sure that we have everyone who is registered here on the call. Thanks so much for taking time out of your morning. Hopefully it's looking like spring in your area of the woods. All right, it looks like we have the majority of our attendees who have registered, so we will get started this morning. Again, I want to welcome you to Michigan Virtual's webinar on collaborative partnerships. My name is Kristen Flynn. I'm the Executive Director of Student Learning Services at Michigan Virtual. My team oversees the course development and acquisitions and teacher hiring for our over 250 middle and high school online courses with nearly 30,000 enrollments annually. I've been here for almost 5 years, and prior to that served as a high school English teacher and administrator at every level, including central office over the last 22 years prior to joining the Michigan Virtual team. Michigan Virtual is excited to recently have celebrated our 20th year in 2018 with over 250,000 enrollments. I'm sorry, 250,000 enrollments. As a nonprofit organization, we not only believe in advancing K-12 digital learning and teaching through research, practice, and partnerships, but also know that every person can use digital learning to help reach his or her full potential. Before I introduce the great guests we have with us today, please note that our purpose is to share a successful model of working collaboratively with RESAs and ISDs and individual districts to provide a solution to multiple district challenges and to introduce a collaborative partnership model as a solution. I'm really excited that these two guests today, in addition to one of our Michigan Virtual colleagues, will be sharing success stories of two different collaborative partnerships. Just a few housekeeping notes so that you'll have an awesome webinar experience today. By default, your microphones will be on mute. If you'd like to ask questions, please type into the chat box and we'll discuss those questions at the end of the session. The chat option is at the bottom of the Zoom webinar screen. To chat, simply click the chat icon and begin typing. We will also be monitoring the chat window during the presentation and respond to your questions in the chat or find a moment to ask the question during a pause or break. If you'd like to verbally express your question, please raise your hand and the webinar manager will help provide you the opportunity to speak. This meeting is being recorded, so we will share the link of the recording with you at the conclusion in case you would like to review or send on to someone else. With that, I'd like to start us off by just sharing some of the challenges our guests will be discussing today in relationship to their respective programs. These district challenges are what we have heard about in the field. They're what we heard about during our strategic planning process several years ago, where we sought a great deal of feedback from the field, specifically from administrators in the state. And so I'm really excited that all of these things that are listed here are areas of focus for both of the guests that will be speaking today. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest panel. Mike?
Good morning. I am Mike Dollinger, the Administrator for Collaborative Partnerships at Michigan Virtual. I recently retired from public education with over 20 years in administration, the last 12 being a high school principal. I understand the wide variety of challenges that we face on a continual basis, such as budgets, personalizing learning for our students within the limited resources we have, and trying to fit that into a simple schedule that is beneficial to everyone, students and the staff. That's why I believe the collaborative partnership model is a win-win for everyone.
And good morning. I'm Kristen Day from the St. Clair County RESA. And I've been supporting the use of technology to facilitate teaching and learning here since 2007. And my teaching background is in the elementary classroom. We're in year 2 of our collaborative partnership with Michigan Virtual. And we do the countywide program where students from any of our local high schools can take Michigan Virtual courses taught by a St. Clair County teacher. And our instructors teach for us part-time in addition to their face-to-face employment at our local schools.
All right, and good morning. I'm Bobby Jo Stoner from Gull Lake Community Schools, which is in the Kalamazoo County area. So I represent a single district user in the collaborative partnership. I have been in education for about 19 years. I was previously a middle school teacher, a high school teacher. I joined Gull Lake as a middle school counselor, became a high school counselor, and that journey has led me to my new position, which is titled Principal of Early College and Innovative Programs. And that means I have the great privilege of overseeing a K-12 full-time virtual school, all of the virtual learning that middle school and high school brick and mortar students take throughout their school day. I oversee a homeschool partnership program and an early college program. We are in year 1 of our collaborative partnership. We've been longtime users of Michigan Virtual for many, many years, but this is our first year as a collaborative partner with Michigan Virtual. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much, panel. We're really excited about them continuing to share more about their roles and their specific area of the state, and a little bit more about their educational institution and how they're uniquely sharing and participating in a collaborative partnership. So just to clarify and level set for everyone, a collaborative partnership on the basic level is Michigan Virtual's content and courses with local district teachers trained in the pedagogy of online instructional practices. By doing this model, course costs are substantially reduced because you're using your own local district teachers and not paying for Michigan Virtual's teachers who've known for years where you have highly qualified certified teachers, but you're now using your own local district teachers and you're only using our content. So this can be done by district, by county, by multiple districts, or by multiple counties, or there might be even other ways that we haven't even thought about yet. So what's great is that on the surface, this is what it is in its simplest form. But when we go in to talk about a collaborative partnership, we look at the specific needs of a particular county, district, multiple counties, multiple districts, to really mass customize this for you and to make it be something that is going to for sure meet the needs from that very first slide that we talked about. So with that, we've kind of formulated some questions as a team that we seem are most relevant to people that might be considering a collaborative partnership for your particular area of the state. So we're going to start off with, what were the challenges your district was trying to solve through a collaborative partnership with Michigan Virtual?
So this is Kristen from St. Clair RESA. I'll jump in to say, we have several needs that this program fills, but what really created that sense of urgency is that we had a for-profit virtual charter setting up shop, right in the heart of the downtown of the district with, half of our student population. And to the credit of our superintendent and one of our local assistant soups, they said, hey, if this is an option that our families want, why don't we develop something countywide where the students can still be connected to their home schools, but have this paradigm of full-time online learning.
Perfect. And from the Gull Lake area as a single district, what we were facing was that our district about 8 years ago, our superintendent at that time, Chris Rundle, he was very innovative and he introduced new programs to our district, which included a homeschool partnership, a full-time alternative virtual school, and an early college program, among a few other things. But with these new programs, he also assured teachers that no one would lose their jobs due to these new programs. And as the programs grew, we witnessed many changing dynamics that were requiring our students to have more flexible learning options. One of them being our early college program expects our students to start dual enrollment by their junior year and they have to transport themselves to the college campus, which is located about 30 minutes away. So our students often needed a virtual class to fill in gaps they were missing or to accommodate travel time. We also had some unique student situations with a variety of learners that needed flexible learning. A violinist that was traveling the world performing his craft, and a future NASCAR driver that is on the road most days of the year. We also had a growing population of homeschool students that were interested in electives with us, but wanted to leverage seat time flexibility in order to do that.
Great, thanks, panel. I really appreciate that. The next question is, what has the experience been like for the instructors that are teaching Michigan virtual classes online?
For our teachers, I've heard that they have been so pleased with the quality of relationships they've been able to establish with their students. They may never see them face to face, or sometimes those students are within the building and they get to check in with them from time to time. But they have, the way the courses are structured, the teachers are shifting into more of that facilitator role in learning, and can individualize the supports for the students, because they're not just dispensing knowledge, they're more or less making sure the students are getting to that deeper level of understanding.
And I would echo everything in Gull Lake. I would echo everything Kristen shared. Many of our teachers that are teaching in the collaborative joined us from brick and mortar and had varying levels of online experience. So they really have reported that it's a lot of new learning challenges, because you're learning how to take the craft and art of teaching into an online format and not sacrifice relationships. So some of the things that they've mentioned are that they really like Michigan Virtual in the sense of how relevant and modern it is compared to other platforms. They've given some examples about how some assignments are to incorporate texting or Facebook posts for historical figures. They use modern examples in criminology and economics. They also really like that the overall content and the way students submit makes it much more difficult for students to plagiarize their answers, as we've seen in some other platforms with academic integrity issues. There is a feature called Safe Assign, and the teachers report that that has been fantastic for checking the integrity of student work. And they also really mentioned liking the discussion boards and the ways you can model a discussion that you would take in a traditional brick and mortar into the online format.
I think it's important to note that many teachers are stating that they have better relationships with the students that are online because they have that one-on-one contact with them. In a brick and mortar classroom, you might have all 30 students in your class, but do you really get to have that one-on-one communication with each one of them every day? Well, in the online classes, you do.
Great. We do have a question from our chat, and so I guess I'd throw that out open to either panelist. How do you handle GPA, class rank, et cetera, with kids in a blended curriculum situation where they might be taking some face-to-face, some online, some dual enrollment, et cetera?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of different factors. So from Gull Lake, I will say there's a lot of different factors that go into that, but I can say for the virtual classes that we count those just the same as we would a traditional brick and mortar class, the same grading scale. When Michigan Virtual assigns the point value at the end, the school has the right, and they always have had the right to determine how it fits into your grading scale. In Gull Lake, we've decided to keep it the same as our brick and mortar. And so the only classes that would be interpreted any differently are just the same as what we would do with AP, for example. Advanced placement receives weighted grades, but everything else receives a letter grade just the same as brick and mortar would.
Great, thank you for that. Next question, what type of training was involved for the instructors to prepare them for teaching Michigan virtual classes?
So we went through the exact same screening and onboarding process as any of the other Michigan virtual instructors. And that has been a huge benefit for our teachers, and because they now can also pick up additional sections directly through Michigan Virtual, and that has been the case for a couple of our instructors, which has been a really exciting opportunity for them. And what that consisted of was, Michigan Virtual handled all of the applications, contacted the teachers to have them go through the screening process. We had a full day orientation followed up by a 4-week onboarding course, which was great because it matched, technically how will you facilitate learning in the Blackboard environment and handle grading and, and a lot of those be an efficient, educator, but also the keying into those essential components of the pedagogy. So how do you give feedback? How do you keep students motivated? So things that, all good teachers do, but just might look a little bit different in an online class.
Yes. So we followed the similar process that Kristen did in St. Clair County area. So our teachers had the application process they went through. Our professional development with Michigan Virtual started with the full day training and kickoff, where Michigan Virtual brought their staff to us, which we really appreciated. We then had our teachers go through the 4-week onboarding course to teach them about online pedagogy. There are the webinars that teachers can access. We also really, really noted that we like the ongoing coaching. So each teacher is matched with a content lead expert from Michigan Virtual. So as our teachers were onboarding and throughout the entire time, they have access to their content coach through Michigan Virtual, which really has proved to be helpful. And then additionally, we were about 1 semester into our collaborative, and we really wanted to regroup, and Michigan Virtual had set up a professional development called Elevate. And again, they brought their team back to Gull Lake to work with our teachers to discuss how the first semester went and give them additional training moving forward.
And I just wanted to reiterate, the importance of Michigan Virtual always providing a coach in the content area for every single teacher in the collaborative. So we do have, monthly department meetings and monthly webinars that teachers can attend, but they also have that personalized coach that they can contact with questions and advice on different needs on online teaching.
Thank you, Mike. There is a question in our chat window about SafeAssign. SafeAssign is included with Michigan Virtual courses. It is not an additional cost. And I believe that it does function similarly to turnitin.com, which is the question. So again, it's checking for that this is the original work of the author or the student that is submitting the work. All right, next question. As an administrator, what has your experience been like with the collaborative partnership?
So for us, there are a lot of different things to consider in terms of making a program like this and taking districts' current processes and the way that they do things, but also making it work on a county level. So there's a lot of ins and outs that go into it. And Michigan Virtual has partnered and helped us work through every little in and out that it takes to make a program like this effective. Things like scheduling and a big component for us was teacher evaluation, how we would evaluate our teachers in an online classroom, because that may be so different to the current processes in place, and making sure that that's communicated to teachers and everybody's feeling comfortable about that piece. So every single thing along the way, we've been coached through it by people who have such a long history of doing this work.
And I echo everything Kristen said there. As an administrator, it's been a tremendous learning curve and very challenging because I do not have a background in educational technology, but luckily I'm blessed to work with people that do have a background in educational technology. So I've learned a lot about technology and the appropriate use of it within the school setting. So for us, as an administrator, I've just really appreciated being able to see how it's helped us to personalize learning and increase student choice and voice in their selections. We were not always able to offer every single option that we can offer now. You know, I remember days when a student would want to take a certain class, especially a foreign language, and if we didn't offer that in our building, we didn't have anything we could give them as a solution. So essentially, when students come to us with what they want to learn, we can try to match them up with their pathway. So it's made the whole educational development plan process, you know, my former counseling, it's really helped us leverage that EDP process. I also think as an administrator, it's been interesting to watch how it's building staff capacity. Digital learning has been happening in pockets really well throughout the district, but you can see that it's starting to build staff capacity. People are asking questions. There is an overall increased interest in what's happening in digital learning options. And, you know, like Kristen said, knowing as an administrator how to evaluate teachers in an online teaching capacity in the sense too of supporting them, like they're doing this work. So what are the look-fors? What are the critical conversations we can have? What are the questions we should be asking as administrators to support the online teachers? That has been very helpful.
That's really exciting. You know, Michigan Virtual has often seen themselves as not just a service provider and change agent, but really with this collaborative partnership model as a capacity builder. So it's exciting to hear that that's happening with the local district teachers, because our goal is to provide the training and support and resources and then walk away when we're not needed anymore, so that the local district can continue to build that capacity year after year. So super exciting. I'm so thrilled that there's more opportunities in terms of world languages. We do offer 7 of them. 7 different world language, with American Sign Language being our #1 course, and 29 advanced placement courses in addition to the wealth of other core and elective offerings. So that's really exciting to hear. Let's talk about the challenges. What obstacles did you face in operationalizing a collaborative partnership with students, teachers, and community?
All right, I'll start us off from Gull Lake on this one. So I would say that in operationalizing it, it really forced us to develop some systems and make sure we had the resources and the manpower and the right staffing to pull this off and make it happen too. Michigan Virtual provides a lot of support to us, but there's still things you have to do in your own district internally to make sure this is successful. So for us, it was developing a lot of systems, you know, working with our counselors and our mentors and our online teachers to make sure we were all on the same page. Also definitely an increase in needing to know how to advise students in their choices and help guide them for their selections. Like Kristen said, you know, over 250 courses, and that is wonderful, but that is a lot of choice. So helping students try to figure out where they should start in the Michigan Virtual process. Managing enrollments has been a piece that Michigan Virtual has helped us with, but just knowing how to work the system and the technology side of it. And then a lot of it though, the obstacles in operationalizing this was just for us developing expectations for our students and their learning requirements. It is any pace, as we know, and that's one of the benefits of virtual learning. But at the same time, you know, your school wants to know where students are at. So for us, we had to develop some internal systems as to what we expected students to do, who could work off-site, who could work on-site, what were our contracts in place for notifying parents of this. And then really just managing the space. We have a virtual lab that runs at our high school, for example. That virtual lab runs 5 blocks a day. We have 5 blocks in our school day, and so we have a virtual lab running every hour. So supporting all of the staff that is doing this work is one of the pieces I'd mentioned for Gull Lake.
Bobby Joe, we do have a question in the chat window. Could you share some of the checkpoints you put in place for student progress?
Sure. So our student progress checkpoints, I would say that we have focused more heavily on what our mentors have given us guidance on. So the ones that are in the lab with the students daily. And so for the most part, that's going to be the pacing guides that we use. And when they fall a certain percentage behind their pacing, the mentor may require them to come back in the building and work until they're caught back up. So that's actually, and see, that's one of the beauties of doing this, is we actually picked up that idea by going to visit another local school that uses Michigan Virtual, and they had given us that idea, and that's helped us tremendously turn our success rates around. We tend to have very high success rates, and they increased after we did that. So having a contract that requires students to be in the lab unless they're off pace. And I'd be happy to share some more information from our mentors, more specifically a little later.
And all our courses come with pacing guides.
Multiple pacing guides. So if students do get off track, so I know during the snow day challenges, if you're a semester district and you missed a bunch of days, mentors would often maybe encourage students to follow the trimester or the summer pacing, which would be at a 12-week pace or a 10-week pace to get students back on pace with the course. Great. Kristen?
Yeah, so with us, very similar to Gull Lake in the fact that you're designing systems and back mapping that work out for us to say, what things need to be done when and by whom, really, because we have to timeline things out to say, to figure out what students the students want to take, or what courses the students want to take at each school. When do we have enough students to staff that with a local teacher? Also, another component was how do we provide a consistent experience to the students? Because many of our students have a Michigan Virtual section and also one for Learn On. So how do we ensure that the students have the same, same expectations in terms of their pacing and kind of how they go about getting help when needed, just to make sure there's no, that we are having a uniformed, set of messaging. And then getting that back to the different stakeholder groups, such as our superintendents, principals, counselors, just making sure that we have these lines of communication and they're tailored to the audience, because different stakeholder groups are doing different parts of supporting this work.
Great. I do want to bring up a question in the chat. Any thoughts or experiences to how this works in a small district? For starters, it would be likely we would not have teachers in all areas. That is the challenge. I know for St. Clair RESA, that was part of the reason they came forward, was they had many small districts that didn't have that. And that's where that mass customization comes in. It might be a teacher or two starting out and teaching our content with your local district students, but it might also mean using some of Michigan Virtual's instructors or a cross section of instructors across a county. So while one small district might not have an advanced placement teacher, there could be one in a neighboring district that now has enough students to run a section from that teacher's school district to the 5 or 6 others within a county. So
I'm going to discuss that in a future slide.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. What are the most positive aspects of using a collaborative partnership model by Michigan Virtual?
All right, so Gull Lake, this is Bobby Jo here. I would say most positive aspect overall is that we love that it's Gull Lake teachers teaching Gull Lake students. We just love having that sense of community and local conversation we can have with our teachers teaching the Gull Lake courses. That means our teachers are available to meet, talk, communicate with students taking Michigan Virtual. So every day at the high school, I see students visiting with their virtual teachers in the labs or in their office hours. We've implemented office hours this year so that every student has the access to their online teacher. That's been helpful. We also like the increased success rates. In general, our students, the success rates have been going up over the years we've used Michigan Virtual, because we've gotten better at the mentoring supports as we've built a system. But we also find that with our teachers locally, it's just easier for those conversations to happen because they pass each other in the hallway and the mentors and teachers are talking to each other in person more frequently. So we think that is increasing success rates. And then the other piece is the ability to offer courses that we would not have enough students to run in a full classroom in the brick and mortar school. So if we can't run a section of Spanish 4, for example, due to student conflicts in their schedules, that we can still offer it in the online environment with local support.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for me. The only other piece I wanted to add, sorry, Kristen, the only other piece I wanted to add was keeping our students. You know, it allows us to keep our students. We can meet their needs in any capacity. Like with all of the programs that we're offering, we really feel like there's no reason we need to lose any of our students or have them leave Gull Lake for any reason. Kristen, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, I echo everything you're saying as well in terms of completion rates. I've been so pleased with that. Last semester, our average completion rate across all of our sections was 85%, which is an increase over last year and an increase when compared to other virtual options. And 3 sections of our classes had 100% completion rate, with one of the teachers having over 20 students, and every single student passed and, had a wonderful online experience. So that was just something I was so pleased with. And again, to echo what you're saying about that community feel, we've got an instructor who is a volleyball coach, and she was playing, the team where the majority of her students were at. And so they got to have that, connection outside of the virtual classroom. And it's just been a really powerful way to connect with students just in a different way. And I've noticed, in addition to, so typically people have used Michigan virtual content to fill those gaps in the classes they can't offer in their within their school. And that's always been happening. But right now, what I'm noticing is we have a large, I'd say the majority of our enrollments are actually for core classes, whether it be math and ELA and social studies. And the cool thing with that is that frees those students up to taking advantage of some of those electives and special things that are offered within their own home schools that they, may not have been able to take advantage of.
Bobby Joe, I think this question probably comes to you back to the lab setting. Typically, how many students per mentor per hour are in the lab?
That's a great question. So we started with like a traditional classroom setting and had a set of laptops or Chromebooks in there for students to use. We've since expanded. So that was about, up to 30 students that we would have in a lab. This year we have taken down the dividing wall between 2 rooms. So we actually have opened it up so that the capacity could be closer to about 50 students in the classroom. Now that, I will say, has come from the mentors feeling like they could handle that. So in the first few years, there's no way that could happen. But as the mentors have developed systems and processes, they've said, I can handle more students in the lab at one time. So I would say we really would not want to go over 45 for the most part, but that is, most of them hover around 30-ish, I would say, but we have opened it up, so some classes will go larger.
Great. And I want to turn it over to a really important question, which is from the student perspective. What are your students saying about taking online classes with local teachers through Michigan Virtual's collaborative partnership?
Positive. Yeah, I would say really positive in Gull Lake. We get positive feedback from students and parents who, have been familiar with Michigan Virtual or are new to it. I think they like the idea of the local ownership. They know that the content is Michigan Virtual created and we can't edit that in any way, but the ability to meet face-to-face for additional help and the response time, they feel like it's been quicker. I will say that with Michigan Virtual, we also felt like their teachers have been good with their response time too, but the ability to walk down the hall and see somebody if you need to has just really increased the response time.
Yeah, and we're getting similar feedback from our students as well. And I think they appreciate that, we're meeting them where they're at. And there's a lot of students that would want to seek out a virtual option for a lot of different reasons. We have students who are homebound, but kind of the structure in which the delivery of the instruction is happening homebound. It's actually better for them to be in this virtual option, still have that local feel connected to a local teacher. and just different things, the flexibility that they are experiencing. Any student who's college bound, I think they feel that this is just preparing them for what it means to be a learner in a post K-12 setting as well.
Great. Can you share the importance of having a quality mentor in the school for the success of online students?
Yeah, it really is. I think this is just my personal opinion, but I think the mentor can make or break it. The importance of the mentor just cannot be underestimated. Like, the mentor has to have just some very innately strong communication skills and ability to relate to students and to understand where they're coming from. They really, for us, they are the glue. So they're the glue between the course, the teacher, the parents, and the student. On a regular basis, if there's a question that comes up with a student in their online learning, one of my very first questions is, what does the mentor say? What does the mentor know? Like, I really count on the mentor being the one that understands what's going on in that student's life and what's impacting their ability to learn. We found that the mentors and students that have strong relationships with each other, those are the students that are more likely to stay on pace and finish their classes. And that takes the mentor knowing how to coach, how to switch their communication style if it's not working. Also, for us, the mentors keep tabs on, proctoring exams. Michigan virtual classes need to have proctored exams. So the mentors are the ones that make sure all of that happens. Really, ultimately, they just are the glue, and they're the face-to-face connection for students on a regular basis to help mediate any issues they might be having.
And Michigan Virtual is really excited and happy to share we have Deb Lynch, who is our outreach coordinator for mentors, who runs regional sessions for mentors across the state, records them, and also makes personalized one-on-one visits or one-on-one coaching sessions for mentors around the state, so that all those best practices that she's learned and actually implemented when she was a mentor are shared throughout the state. And it's been super powerful. We've had her on board for 2 years, and we've seen such an impact in success rates across the state. Kristen, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just our local mentors are phenomenal. They're like the air traffic controller, they're strategizing and, kind of balancing so many different things with so many different students. And just their ability to be flexible and adapt and, again, to, meet the students where they are and, help them to be responsible and in charge of their learning, but understanding these are high school students yet still need a lot of support. And it's this gradual release to responsibility. And they are there in providing so many services above and beyond, troubleshooting and logging in and things. They are just doing amazing work.
Awesome. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike, who's going to talk to us about how students taking online classes through a collaborative partnership provide flexibility in scheduling for both teacher and student. And frankly, what he's going to share with you, counselors love in being able to offer flexibility in student scheduling. Mike?
Thanks. As an administrator who put together many schedules, I understand the difficulty in trying to meet all the students' needs and the teachers' needs. So I'd like to talk a little bit about scheduling and how the collaborative partnership can be so beneficial and show you a couple of examples. Say a student wants to take AP Calculus. That class may be only taught face-to-face first and third hour, which coincides with the student's other elective classes that they want to take, band and art. In the years past, the student would have to make a choice. That's not very personalized. Now that student can still fit AP Calculus in a schedule as the teacher is instructing in the class asynchronously, which means it's not at the same time during the day. As a matter of fact, any student can now fit that class into their schedule any hour of the day. The teacher would receive the same salary because, as you can see on this example, they have a full teaching load. Their classes, online, one online section, and of course their planning period. Another example, say the student has AP classes or electives that only allow them to take government, a required class, the last period of the day. and that class is not offered the last hour of the day, and the teacher already has a full teaching load. Let that teacher instruct outside of the normal school day and pay them as a stipend, much like a Schedule B. And there are a variety of ways that the instructor can be compensated, and we can walk you through each of those processes. This flexibility allows the students to take the classes they want and need at a time that works for them. And it doesn't have to be the teachers from the same building, such as in St. Clair. If your district doesn't have an AP statistics teacher, tap into a teacher from another district. And for the small schools, this allows you to run a class that you would not normally run. You might only have 5 students from your district that want to take the class. But if you take your 5 students and 3 students from another school and 7 from another school, etc., now you have enough enrollments to run the class. It's just doing what's best for kids and providing them the instruction they need, and it's cost effective. Back to what Kristen and Bobby Joe were saying earlier, this keeps local funds in local districts.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Well, our final question for the panel, does online learning work for all students?
Well, isn't that the million-dollar question? So I know people may not believe me, but I really do. My personal belief is it can work for all students. Does it work for all students? No, but can it? Could it work for all students? Yes. It really relies on the student's personal drive and perseverance, like their ability to manage time, their ability to ask for help, their ability to access supports. But I will say, one of my biggest learning ahas through this has been, I've sometimes been too hasty to prejudge or to predict who's going to do well, and sometimes I'm way off. We've had some students who have a 4.0 receive one of their first lower grades in an online learning class. We've also had some of our most struggling learners be the first to receive one of their first A's on their transcript. So it really depends on the student, their learning style, their relationship with their mentor, and just a lot of different factors, but I would say it can work for all.
Yep, I 100% agree. It's just about thinking really big about what is it that students need to be successful in an online classroom, and then just creating that structure. And Michigan Virtual has been wonderful with this in terms of they have a student orientation, they have a parent guide, all the different people who have a role in making sure that student is successful. Michigan Virtual already has tools to go in and help them do that. And so that has really been huge for us. And then just the thing, we want students to have every opportunity possible. And there's some students too, in our area, one in particular, he plays hockey. Last year he was in Alaska. This year he's in Canada. We wouldn't want that student not to have an option to be served by their local district because of time and place. And then it just also creates an opportunity for other students to have a successful online experience and build the skills that it needs to be an independent learner, which they need for all walks of life.
Awesome. We do have a successful profile here of an online learner. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, we say that any student can be successful with online classes, but Michigan Virtual's success rate at over 80% is obviously benefited by successful mentoring, which we train, successful training, teacher preparation. And as mentioned before, the students are motivated, they have good time management, they're technologically prepared. And what we do is at Michigan Virtual, we have a variety of resources. That's our job, is to build capacity in your district. We have guides to help navigate you through this whole process. And you can find these free guides on our website. And again, just remember that we're here to partner with you and build capacity in your teachers, build capacity with your district, and provide the education that students desire and should have.
Well, we do have one question in the queue still, so I think this probably, Kristen, will come to you. How do costs work when a small district, that they need instructors from other districts? So what does the pay model look like for Learn-On across the county for you guys, and how does that work with paying instructors?
Yeah, okay. So actually RESA is we employ the teachers to teach for us. So the local district doesn't have the burden of figuring out how to hire this person, how to evaluate them, and things like that. They're actually work for RESA, and we do a $125 per student. What we do is after the drop date ends, we take that number of students, and our teachers are paid, halfway through the course and the remainder at the end. But really all of that flows through RESA, and we also have a consortium model for billing. So RESA pays for all Michigan virtual enrollments, and then we just go through the invoice and we bill the districts for what they owe us for the content and for our teacher stipend.
Great. Do we have any other questions from the webinar, either in the chat or if anybody wants to raise their hand and actually ask a question? We have a few minutes left here to answer any questions you might have. Seeing none at this time, I would like to thank Mike, Bobby, Joe, and Kristen, our panelists, for being with us today and for sharing their stories, and for really all the attendees who took time out of their day to participate. We want to thank you. If you'd like more information, michiganvirtual.org/collaborative. And just a reminder that this has been recorded and will be coming to you via email here sometime later today. So we really appreciate it. Thank you to all, and have a great rest of your day. We look forward to any future conversations with anyone who might be interested in starting a collaborative this coming fall. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.